Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Talk with Antonio. I am your host, Antonio. Well, WrestleMania 41 has come and gone. I didn't watch it. I just knew what happened. I was going to order it, and I was going to reinstall Peacock on my television, but hearing what happened, thankfully I didn't pay for it, and to get it installed, but whatever it is, what it is. On the first night, I will say that I am very, very happy for CM Punk to finally get his WrestleMania main event. He richly deserved it. And it was a triple threat match against CM Punk against Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. I was unhappy that he lost, but whatever. At least CM Punk got his main event moment. Now, on the second night, Cody Rhodes finally lost after a year holding the championship against that fucking hypocrite Cena, who is now a 17-time world champion, I will get into that some other time. Now, I don't even want to talk about that. Fuck him. Right now, this episode, even though I did talk about it in my previous episode of my podcast about the newest inductees for the WWE Hall of Fame 2025, right now I'm going to talk about the aftermath of the inductees and where it took place. Okay, the WWE Hall of Fame 2025 took place in Winchester, Nevada at the Fontainebleau, Las Vegas and Buell Live Theater in Las Vegas, Nevada, in Winchester, Nevada on April 18th, 2025. Okay, now the first inductee, obviously he was going to be the main one. It was Triple H. He is the two-time inductee, previously inducted in 2019 as a member of D-Generation X. He is a 9-time WWF/WWE World Heavyweight Champion, 5-time inaugural World Heavyweight Champion, 5-time WWF/WWE Intercontinental Champion, 2-time WWF European Champion, 1-time WWE Tag Team Champion, 2-time WWF World Tag Team Champion, 1997 King of the Ring winner, 2-time Royal Rumble winner, 2002 and 2016, and a 3-time Slammy Award. Now, the other one, I have a few reasons. Lex Luger. He is the 2-time World Heavyweight Champion, 2-time WCW World Television Champion, 5-time and longest reigning NWA WCW United States Heavyweight Champion, 3-time WCW World Tag Team Champion, co-winner of the 1994 Royal Rumble, and a 1-time Slammy Award winner. Now, the third one, that one to me is very fucking questionable. Michelle McCool, 2-time WWE Women's Champion, 2-time and inaugural WWE Divas Champion, 2-time Slammy Award winner. Now, in the group, the tag team, who was the tag team was the Natural Disasters. They were a 1-time WWF Tag Team Champions. Okay. The living inductee, Typhoon, Fred Ottman, 1-time AWA International Heavyweight Champion, 2-time AWA Southern Tag Team Champion, and a 1-time NWA Heavyweight Champion. Now, the posthumous inductee, Earthquake, the late John Tenta, represented by his widow, Josephine, his daughter, Joanna, his son, John Jr., and his grandson, Joe. He was a 1-time NWA Vancouver Canadian Heavyweight Champion and a 1-time UWA Heavyweight Champion Vancouver version. Now, in the immortal moment, this one right here was, in my eyes, pretty fucking awesome. It was voted number 2 best WrestleMania match of all time. It was the WrestleMania 13, Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13 submission match. Okay, now in the legacy, this one is they should have done it while he was still alive, but I don't understand why WWE has a tendency to do that, even though this person is no longer alive. The Ugandan giant Kamala. He was a 1-time AWA Southern Heavyweight Champion, 1-time ICW Southern Tag Team Champion, 1-time IWA United States Heavyweight Champion, 1-time IWA Tag Team Champion, 1-time NWA Mississippi Heavyweight Champion, 1-time NWA Tri-State United States Tag Team Champion, Tri-State version, 1-time NWA Southeastern Heavyweight Champion, Northern Division. 4-time USWA Unified World Heavyweight Champion, famous for his feuds with Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, and The Undertaker. The other one is Dory Funk Sr., owner promoter of the Western State Sports Promotion, 8-time NWA Southwest Junior Heavyweight Champion, 4-time NWA Southwest Tag Team Champion, 3-time NWA Western States Heavyweight Champion, 1-time NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, held the regional versions of several other NWA championships throughout his career, father of Dory Funk Jr. and Terry Funk. And the other one is Ivan Koloff. He was a 1-time WWF World Heavyweight Champion, 3-time NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, 3-time NWA World Television Champion, 1-time NWA Southern Heavyweight Champion, Florida version, 7-time NWA Georgia Tag Team Champion, 5-time NWA Florida Tag Team Champion, 5-time NWA World Tag Team Champion, Mid-Atlantic version, 2-time NWA World 6-Man Tag Team Champion, 2-time NWA United States Tag Team Champion, Mid-Atlantic version, 1-time NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champion, famous for ending Bruno Sammartino's 2,803-day reign as WWF World Heavyweight Champion, the longest reign in the title's history. You know, I do remember about this, Ivan Koloff, in the magazine that when he beat Bruno Sammartino, so he was, quote-unquote, representing the Soviet Union at the time. People were rioting. I read this in Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine that came out in 2003. I'm going to see if I can look for it, and I can give you my opinion about all the champions that have been there, which is pretty awesome if you ask me. I got it where in 2003, at what was once the Electronic Fries here in Burbank. Oh, man, that's old school there. Okay, but let's talk about the inductees. I'm gonna give you my opinion. Okay, I'm gonna start with the main ones, obviously. The ones that I grew up with watching. Okay, Triple H. As when I started watching him as Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Okay. I would say yes, obviously. I mean, I have my reasons of obviously why he's going to be in there. But you know what though? I'll give Triple H credit. He did it. Basically, he did it. He made it. Even though he's banging the boss's daughter per se. But yeah, he became a multiple-time champion and everything. He's a main eventer. He came from WCW. I remember that as Terra Rising. Oh my god! And I've seen pictures of him in the internet. Oh my god! But do I think he deserves being in the Hall of Fame as a solo member? Yes, I do agree. Now let's go on to the Natural Disasters. The tag team that I grew up watching. Yeah. I think they had a very short run as tag team in the WWF when I started watching. But I enjoy them. I especially enjoy how Earthquake used to beat the living shit out of his jobber, and then he'd do that in circles, jump up and down like an earthquake. That was always pretty awesome to me. I think everyone imitated that. And Typhoon, bad. I think they were just a badass team, you know. I liked them. And did they deserve going into the Hall of Fame? Yes. Now, in terms of the legacy members who sadly are no longer alive. Okay, the Ugandan giant Kamala. Yes. I don't understand, but here's my issue with that. Why didn't they induct him while he was still alive? And there's always been a lot of stories of how the WWE didn't really help Mr. Harris here, or Kamala, and while he was dealing with health problems with high blood pressure and diabetes. They had to amputate both of his legs, and I don't know. I've always had like my issues with that, but there's always stories of how WWE just ignores people who just gave it all and don't give a fuck. But yeah, there's other stories of how Vince McMahon helped out. What's his name? What's this dude's name? I forgot his name. He was an NWA champion. Harley Race, there you go. I'm so sorry, people. I just had a brain fart. How can I forget? He helped out Harley Race with his hospital bills and all that stuff. And Vince McMahon just signed a check and boom, 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 boom. He didn't give a fuck. In that aspect, I'll give him credit, you know. But in terms of Kamala, I don't know. And you know, he actually did a couple of interviews, and people say that they're gonna say that he's a whiner and all that stuff. How can he say anything? But you know, Kamala did a lot of shoot interviews. Voicing his displeasure of basically in pay disputes, and he talked about how the Undertaker he was longer there than the Undertaker, and the Undertaker was barely getting started, and he mentioned something about the Undertaker getting paid more than him, and that's something I would strongly believe. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me that they would pay less Kamala than the Undertaker. I mean, like I said, it would not surprise me at all, but. Like I said, and then they brought Kamala later on, like in 2001 with the gimmick battle royal. And then they brought him. I think they brought him back in 2005 to do with the Legend Killer gimmick that Randy Orton was doing that time, and they just didn't do anything for him afterwards. And I just believe it was a damn shame that they didn't induct him while he was still alive, and and that's something I have a little bit of issue, but I'm just a minority. My opinion doesn't matter, but in my opinion is I think they should have inducted Kamala while he was still alive, but whatever. Dory Funk Sr. I really don't have an opinion about him because he was before my time on what I'm gonna say. The God honest truth. I know, like I said, it says here that he was the father of Dory Funk Jr. and Terry Funk. I know Terry Funk. I know very little about him. But in terms of what do I have an opinion of Dory Funk Sr.? Does he deserve it? Yeah, he does. But I don't know much about his work. But based on what I read here, he had a lot of accolades, and I'll give him credit. He was good. Now, Ivan Koloff. That's another one that I really don't have an opinion. That, me personally, he was before my time, but I do remember reading here. I do remember reading on Pro Wrestling Illustrated that came out in 2003 that he was the dude that ended Bruno Sammartino's longest reign of champion at that time. 2,803 days to be exact. And I was like, damn, that's like the longest reigning champion. And yeah, but does he deserve it? Yes, he did. And now let's talk about the Bret Hart, Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin WrestleMania 13. That was voted number 2 of all time. Okay. Let's go back to 1997, people. WrestleMania 13, people who watched that at that time knows that originally it was supposed to be the rematch versus Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels for the rematch from WrestleMania 12. But as we all know, this is something that I've always had this, I fucking hate this strong dislike of Shawn Michaels when he did that. He lost his smile. I have never, ever been able to digest that. And you know, every time I see his speech of lost his smile, and he's doing that crying, even Bret Hart saying, "Oh, it's like he came out of this life career-ending knee injury, and he pretends to be crying." Basically, that was like a straight-out pot shot towards Shawn Michaels. It's just like, to me, I don't understand what the fuck did Shawn Michaels kind of power. What type of power that he had against Vince McMahon in 1997, and even what's his name? Let me see. The late Road Warrior Hawk said something like this. Let me see if I could find it, people. I think this is it. Yeah, he says here that this is where the Road Warriors were talking about on Vince McMahon. I think this took place. This is obviously courtesy of RF Video. This is where the late Road Warrior, actually both the late Road Warrior Hawk and Animal, are talking about Vince McMahon. And he mentioned something about Shawn Michaels. And this is something that I've always, now that I think about it, I even talked about this with a fellow that I did an interview a while back. I've always wondered, why did fucking Shawn Michaels got away with a lot of fucking shady shit? And then, you know how the internet has become more like, you find out about a lot of things about, basically about anybody. And this is the video that I'm talking about. This is courtesy of RF Video, by the way.
If I've ever seen anybody, including Stone Cold, have Vince more wrapped or in the palm of his hand, it's Shawn Michaels. I don't know if it's a sexual deal they got going on, because I've heard this about both of them. I don't know what it is, but that Shawn Michaels got away more crap than I've seen from anybody.
Just the way
Matter of fact,
Vince
when they got
looks.
the hair fight pulling match between him and Bret Hart, and believe me, if everybody would have broken up, Bret Hart would.
You would have killed Shawn.
But the thing is, they're both pulling hair. There's Pat Patterson going, kill. I'm going, Pat, I don't break up fights. I said, I don't want anybody breaking up mine either. And so, right there was the beginning of the end for Bret Hart. That's because that tells me something. To me, as a heterosexual man, tells me maybe there's something going on with these two, where after 17 years of Bret Hart, who stayed there, worked there every day, worked his ass out, and didn't get time off with phony injuries like Shawn Michaels. I could never understand it. I said, there's something going on here. I used to call it a ball and cock contract. You know, you might not want to print that, you might.
Yeah, this was the late Warrior Hawk when he said something about how Vince McMahon and Shawn Michaels were all like, there was always been an insinuation. It's not just me. Look it up on Google, on any wrestling website that talks about, it talks about Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, how they had like this strong heat, and then they can tell how Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon always had like this, I don't know. Like I said, all I can say is, I don't know. It could be, but like I said, I don't have all the evidence. But is it believable? Like I said, I don't know. That's the thing. But yeah, that was supposed to be the rematch. But we all know Shawn Michaels gave that speech on, I think it was Thursday Night Raw, I believe. And he forfeited the WWF World Heavyweight Championship to quote unquote find a smile. And that's where Bret Hart had like more heat towards this guy, and that's when they changed the match for WrestleMania 13 for the submission match. It was Bret the Hitman Hart against Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the special referee was also Ken Shamrock. And dude, when I was watching that pay-per-view, I was like glued to because it was on pay-per-view at that time. My mom and dad ordered it for me, and I was watching. I was glued, and I'll never forget at that, like during the match, how Stone Cold got busted open, and then they do that famous iconic moment where Bret puts the sharpshooter on him, and Stone Cold is like standing, like basically screaming. You can see like the blood falling down on his face. That was like probably the most iconic moment of all time. And I love that match. That was the reason why. And then the so-called main event was the WWF champion the late Psycho Sid against The Undertaker. I think that was an okay main event. I'm not gonna lie to you, but the real show at that pay-per-view, WrestleMania 13, was the submission match, Bret Hart against Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I remember I've been seeing a lot on, and also this makes Bret Hart the 3-time inductee. The first time was in 2006 as a solo inductee, and then he went in and I think it was where he got attacked. I don't remember who it was. Let me see. Let me check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, it says here that this induction made Bret the Hitman Hart the first ever 3-time inductee, having previously been inducted for solo career in 2006 and as part of the tag team The Hart Foundation in 2019. And also this made Stone Cold the 2-time inductee after being previously inducted in 2009. But there's always like, always like people are always trashing Bret because you can tell that he was a little bit pissed off that he couldn't give a longer speech. And also towards the end of the induct, I think fucking Pat McAfee always comes up and just tries to always hog the spotlight. It was that time it wasn't about Pat McAfee. It was about Stone Cold Steve Austin and Bret the Hitman Hart. Then fucking Pat McAfee came in and he does that beer and all that stuff. And even Bret Hart didn't even give. They say that they didn't give him enough time to give a speech. And then when he shook the hand of Triple H, you could tell he was pretty pissed off about that. And then Triple H, when he was inducted, I think he gave like an hour or so, or an hour and a half. I don't know exactly. But yeah, that was like they're saying that they were trashing Bret of how he was pissed off. But you know what though? I'm not gonna trash him. I'm never gonna trash Bret. People who trash him, fuck you. I don't care. And now to the people who I have questionable. People are gonna trash me because I'm gonna say about this. Okay. Lex Luger. How can I say this? Sorry if I'm quiet, ladies and gentlemen. It's just like right now I'm just gathering my thoughts on what do I think of Lex Luger being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame 2025, of class of 2025. Did he deserve it? I know I'm going to rub people the wrong way. Honestly, no. He didn't. He didn't deserve it. I'm so sorry. I never really saw. He was more of a WCW guy. When I first saw him the first time, I think it was at the first pay-per-view that I ordered. I've talked about this in the past. Royal Rumble 1993, when the late Bobby Heenan introduced him as the narcissist Lex Luger. And I'll never forget that pay-per-view, the way Bobby Heenan was announcing. He was like, oh, the narcissist Lex Luger. Like, you could tell he was getting like a fucking hard on for that. I was like, now that I watch it as as an older, mature guy. I actually chuckle just watching how Bobby Heenan reacts towards Lex Luger. It was like, I'm sorry. It's just like I get a kick just by watching how Bobby Heenan reacts when he's interviewing Lex Luger, the narcissist at that time, when he was doing that character. And yeah, he honestly, what did he do in the WWF? I spoke to this to a dear friend of mine on the phone, and I told him my honest opinion that I personally never saw him as a WWF guy. I thought I think he didn't really do anything in that company. But my friend said that he was actually doing something pretty good with the Lex Express, and when he showed up at that I think it was a Navy ship or something like that. Something I forgot. And then when he body slammed Yokozuna, and that's when he started with the Lex Express, where he fought at SummerSlam, Lex Luger against Yokozuna, and Lex Luger won, I believe, but via disqualification. But he didn't win the title. But I don't know what the fuck happened, and even Jim Cornette said it was just a big clusterfuck, basically. Because I was watching the match, I watched it very recently on YouTube, And there was like this huge celebration. Like the Steiner brothers showed up. I don't know which other wrestlers. And then they had Lex Luger on their shoulder. And he was celebrating with the American flag and all that stuff. And then he fought against Yokozuna at WrestleMania 10 for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. And that year, Lex Luger and Bret Hart and Lex Luger were co-winners of the 1994 Royal Rumble. And then he fought against Yokozuna, and then the special referee was Mr. Perfect. And I guess in the match, Mr. Perfect basically gave the middle finger to Lex Luger, and Lex Luger lost, and Yokozuna went on to win, so he could fight Bret Hart later on in the match for the main event of WrestleMania to end WrestleMania 10. Bret Hart against Yokozuna for the WWF World Heavyweight Championship, the rematch from the abysmal WrestleMania 9, and the special referee was Roddy Piper. And even in the documentary of Bret Hart, let me see, The Best There Is, The Best There Was, and The Best There Will Be DVD, Bret Hart said that Lex was not going to make it because I don't think he had enough. I don't know. I'm not saying that he was not a star. I'm not going to say. I'm not denying that. But when they announced him, when they gave him, I remember it's a clip on YouTube. You could look it up. I'm not lying, ladies and gentlemen. And you could see how they pretended how Lex Luger came out as the World Wrestling Federation champion. He barely got a reaction. I never really saw him as a WWF champion in my eyes. I'm sorry. And he was a WCW, like even before I knew about him, he was a WCW guy. And like the one thing, and then in 1995 he was just floundering around, and then he teamed up with the late Davey Boy Smith, British Bulldog, and he formed the Allied Powers, I believe. And then in late 1995. He was working without a contract in the WWF, and supposedly he gave Vince McMahon his word that he was gonna sign a new contract with that company. And then later on, September 1995, on the debut episode of WCW Monday Nitro, and he debuted at the Mall of America in Minneapolis. He just came in through the what's it called, in the hall or the walkway, and I think it was Ric Flair against Sting, and then on the walkway you could see Lex Luger walking up, just looking and staring, and people were chanting Luger, Luger. Obviously he was back home. And I remember watching a documentary of I think it was when Raw went back to USA, I believe, in 2005. And I remember Jim Ross was talking. He said that the beginning of the Monday Night Wars occurred that Nitro debuted in the Mall of America in Minneapolis. The big surprise was that they stole Lex Luger from the WWE. And then I don't know about that, but there's other, like, even in the documentary that WWE released, the Monday Night War, I believe that Vince McMahon fucked up, because he said that, even Jim Cornette said in the documentary, that Vince McMahon made a huge mistake. He took somebody's word for it. And in my opinion, I don't think you're supposed to take somebody's word for that, like that. And I just think it's wrong. I don't think it's supposed to be that way. But apparently, Vince believed Luger. He was going to sign a contract, and then I believe it was Sting who talked to Eric Bischoff, and Eric Bischoff basically offered Lex an offer. It was just like a fraction of what he was making, and surprisingly, Eric Bischoff said that Lex took it. And he also mentioned that when he was going to make his debut, he said that his contract was up, and we all know what happened. We all saw how Lex Luger debuted on WCW Monday Nitro on the first episode, and since that time, he was blacklisted from WWF, WWE. And I do remember when on the last episode of Monday Nitro, it was like on the both airing Raw and Nitro at the same time. I'll never forget that one time where Vince McMahon saying, let's ask the audience of who should bring in like these so-called stars. The first one he said was, let's start with Hulk Hogan up. And now that I rewatched that, I do see like a majority of we're all saying the thumbs down. And then he said, let's go to Lex Luger up. And there was quite a few ups. And he says, Lex Luger down. Majority were all thumbs down. And then later on, like when WCW ceased to exist, later on, like I think in 2003, Lex Luger was still healthy at that time. And he wanted to come back to the WWE. But I guess at that time, WWE was not interested. And also Vince McMahon always took pot shots at Lex Luger because of how he left. Because, let's go back to Lex Luger in the WWF at that time when he debuted. Everybody knows that Vince McMahon is a guy that gets a fucking hard on for jacked up dudes who look like they're in peak shape and all that stuff. That's the only reason why. I think Lex Luger to me was not really a wrestler. He was a former NFL player. And he got a lot of heat. He was disliked by everybody. I think he was disliked by the late Mike Graham. He was especially strongly disliked by Eric Bischoff. And I'll tell you why. He said that even before this happened, in the documentary, The Monday Night War, Eric Bischoff says straight out, I've never been a fan of Lex Luger on a professional level or on a personal level. He had something against him. That's why he offered him that offer was a fraction of what he was making. And he said that surprisingly, Lex Luger took it. And he stayed from 1995 up until 2001. And, but after wrestling, he appeared in TNA. I do remember seeing him that. But then, like, in terms of his personal life, in that aspect, I would say I do feel bad for him. Because his personal life was, he lost a lot of money. He lost his house, his cars, and also at that time he was dating the late Miss Elizabeth, and that's another reason why Eric Bischoff over the years, but right now he has mellowed out towards Lex. He even invited Lex Luger, both him and Diamond Dallas Page, on his podcast, and they were talking. And you could tell that Eric Bischoff really has made amends with Lex Luger. And also another thing before I forget, also he had the thing with Lex Luger right now in that aspect. I'm glad he's okay. And he had a spinal stroke. He's been on a wheelchair, but thanks to Diamond Dallas Page and DDP Yoga, he's doing well. In the Hall of Fame induction, he got up and he was on his feet, and people were cheering. And you know what? That aspect, I am happy for Lex Luger, because he's, in terms of health, everyone deserves to be healthy. Be on their feet, can walk and talk, whatever. In that aspect, I'm happy for Lex Luger. But in terms of his personal life, what he did, he made a lot of mistakes. He lost his house. He was stopped by police because of not like illegal drugs, but in terms of he used a lot of steroids, human growth hormone. It's all over the internet. I'm not lying, people. And in terms of, he also dated the late Miss Elizabeth, and that's another reason why Eric Bischoff had a strong dislike for Lex Luger, because he blamed. He said also his wife. Both Eric and Eric's wife loved Ms. Elizabeth, and Eric Bischoff at that time, and I think you could look it up on YouTube, really said that he blamed Lex Luger for the death of Miss Elizabeth. In terms of that, I don't know. Everyone has their opinions in regards to what wrestlers or whoever does what they do in their personal life and their private life. That's their thing. But let me say this. Do I believe that Lex Luger deserved to be in the WWE Hall of Fame? Honestly, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, no. I'm sorry. I never really, like I said, I'm not saying because of what happened with Ms. Elizabeth. That's a different story. But what I'm saying was, he deserved it. He was just a WCW guy, you know. He never really did anything major in the WWF, other than having like feuds with Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, Yokozuna, etc. But he never really did anything major in the WWF at that time. But a lot of people, I've spoken to another fellow, a fellow by the name of Jake. He said that no, he didn't deserve it because of what happened to Miss Elizabeth. And another person, while I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone, overheard me talking about that, and he said that nope, he didn't deserve it because of what happened to Miss Elizabeth. I mean, people have their opinions, and I respect that. But in terms of did he deserve to be inducted into this year's Hall of Fame? No, I'm sorry, he didn't. And that's just my opinion. I'm sorry. Okay, now on to another one that I really, really question. And I do mean big time question. Michelle McCool. Really? Really? Like, honest to Christ, people, I don't even know where to start in that. I mean, think about this for 1 second. Again, I spoke to this about on the phone with my friend. Michelle McCool is in before the late Miss Elizabeth, the late China. My friend says that in terms of Miss Elizabeth, it's not much. She was just I forgot the word that he used, but he said that she was never really an attraction. Yeah, but she is considered the first lady of wrestling at that time, when I was growing up. But you know, a lot of people say that how come she's not in any type of wrestling Hall of Fame? Because a lot of people are saying that the family of the late Miss Elizabeth say that they want nothing to do with wrestling. It's just like similar to what happened with Martha Hart in regards to Owen Hart. That's basically it with Miss Elizabeth. But you know, like in terms of she was in the WWF and then she left and she went to WCW and she disappeared. She passed away in 2003. And a lot of people feel the death of Ms. Elizabeth, like people like Eric Bischoff, and even Bret Hart in his DVD and like in the extras says that he was always very saddened by the loss of Ms. Elizabeth. And you can tell that he was hurt talking about her. I mean, you can tell that Ms. Elizabeth really had a ball in wrestling. But a lot of people put the blame on Lex Luger because of what happened to her. Because she died of a drug overdose, a prescription drug overdose. Let me see the cause of death. Let me see. Ms. Elizabeth, cause of death. Okay. Let's see here. It says here that on May 1st, 2003 in Marietta, Georgia, Luger called 911 to report that Hewlett was not breathing. She did not respond to mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and paramedics rushed her to the Wellstar Kennestone Hospital emergency room where she was pronounced dead at the age of 42. Oh, man. So fucking young. It says here that a medical examiner listed the cause of, quote, acute toxicity, unquote, brought in by a mix of painkillers and vodka. Her death was ruled an accident. It says here that Hewlett was buried in Frankfort Cemetery in her hometown of Frankfort, Kentucky. But a lot of people place the blame on what's his name, on Lex Luger. I'm not going to talk about that because, I mean, look, in our lives, we all make bad choices in life. We all make mistakes. And also she also dated what's his name, Macho Man. And he actually said that in a later interview that that he doesn't place the blame on Lex Luger. He said that Miss Elizabeth was she made her choice, basically. But the late Macho Man said that he doesn't place the blame on Lex Luger at all because of what happened to Miss Elizabeth. But yeah. But in terms of Michelle McCool, what the fuck did she do that's Hall of Fame worthy? I'm going to say it right now. Nothing. Nothing at all, in my opinion. All she is just being the Undertaker's wife. Let's see what type of shit that she did to become into the WWE Hall of Fame. All she is a two-time WWE Women's Champion, two-time and inaugural WWE Divas Champion, and a two-time Slammy Award winner. That's it. She, like I said, she is in before Ms. Elizabeth or Chyna. And Chyna did more, in my opinion, did more things. If people are going to say that I'm being biased, no. If you compare Chyna to Michelle McCool, Chyna did a lot of things, in my opinion. Like right now, even wrestlers like Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, hell, even Becky Lynch. All these female wrestlers right now have done more things than Michelle McCool. The only reason that she got in is because she's fucking she's the Undertaker's wife, and we all know that the Undertaker has stroke in the WWE right now. And then when he inducted her, he did a speech. Basically, he kind of took a shot at Natalya Neidhart because of the last name. And what about you, dude, Undertaker? You're using your name and your stroke to induct your wife, who in my opinion didn't do jack shit that's Hall of Fame worthy, you know? I think that, in my opinion, that inductee of Michelle McCool was probably the biggest bullshit member of this year's Hall of Fame. And yeah, I don't think I think she was the least deserved member to be inducted into the Hall of Fame at all. And be like I said before, Ms. Elizabeth and Chyna, give me a break, you know. Okay, so in conclusion, for this year's, what do I think of in terms of power? Besides Triple H, Kamala, and let me see who else. The Bret Hart match, and the Bret Hart match against Stone Cold. Bret Hart against the Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13. In terms of what do I think of this year's Hall of Fame? I think this year was probably the weakest. I'm sorry. Like I said, it had Triple H, it had Kamala, it had the match against the submission match of Bret Hart against Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13. But in my opinion, it did not have enough star power from the past, because there's other wrestlers from the past that have yet to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. For example, The Rock. Why isn't he why hasn't The Rock been inducted yet? You know, that's something that I'm very curious about, people. Why isn't he in the WWE Hall of Fame yet? Another one is King Kong Bundy. He was a huge star in the 80s in the WWF. He's still largely absent in the Hall of Fame. Demolition, another one that's very absent in the WWE Hall of Fame. Why? But in terms of King Kong Bundy and Demolition, I believe it's because of a lawsuit that they filed against WWE for the concussions and all that stuff, CTE. I think it was filed in 2016. It was dismissed, I think, a while after. And I believe that, and also there's a story in regards to King Kong Bundy that I believe they wanted to, again, do the Legend Killer with Randy Orton. And they were saying that, what's his name, Tommy Dreamer, tried to get in contact with King Kong Bundy, but he did. And afterwards, he said that he told Tommy Dreamer, he said that we're cool. You've always been nice to me. He says that he would return if he will make him the champion. King Kong Bundy, that is. He will make him champion and tell Vince McMahon to pay him the money that they owe him. And I guess, I don't know what happened, but I believe that King Kong Bundy, look it up on the internet, I'm not lying. King Kong Bundy said in the email, he can tell Vince McMahon to go fuck himself. And I believe Tommy Dreamer relayed the message, who was working with the WWE at that time, to Vince McMahon. And as usual, the fucking ass kiss cocksucker John Laurinaitis told Tommy Dreamer, why'd you say to go Vince McMahon to go fuck himself? He just say, I didn't say, I'm just saying what King Kong Bundy said. And Vince McMahon apparently read the email and he said, okay, that's what King Kong Bundy said. Okay, let's move on. And that's it. And with Demolition, I think it's also the same thing with the lawsuit against concussions and all that stuff. And it just stands for other reasons. I even spoke to this with my dear friend about that lawsuit. And another one who is, I think he was going to be inducted, I believe in 2020, I believe, but or 2021, I don't know. I could be wrong, perhaps. But because of what happened with COVID, I think he couldn't make it or something. It was Batista. Batista is another one. And Triple H mentioned him when they were doing the Evolution group. He mentioned Randy Orton, Ric Flair, but he mentioned that Batista was not there. And that's another one who I believe has not been inducted into the Hall of Fame. And they say he couldn't do it because he had his Hollywood commitments. But other members, let's see. Let's talk about members of. Oh yeah, before I forget, in terms of Lex Luger being inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame, many wanted Sting to induct Lex Luger because him and Sting and Lex are best friends. But because of how Sting is signed to AEW, I guess they couldn't come to an agreement, or basically Tony Khan didn't let him, so they chose Diamond Dallas Page to induct him. And I don't know right now if I think Conan mentioned something about that, of how if Tony doesn't let Sting induct Lex into the Hall of Fame, there's going to be heat on him. I do believe that there's already heat on that guy, because Tony Khan, to me, in my opinion, doesn't know how to run a wrestling company. You could say whatever you want about Vince McMahon, because he is an old man who is out of touch, but he knew how to run a wrestling company, basically. But yeah, and so they chose Diamond Dallas Page to induct Lex Luger. So we all know, we all got that. And so in conclusion, this year's Hall of Fame 2020 class of 2025, I'm sorry, it was extremely weak. And yes, I know I'm gonna get a lot of heat, but this is my opinion and it's my show, and I can say whatever the fuck I want. If y'all don't like it, I'm sorry. Tough shit, like Bret Hart said. But if the people who do listen to it and like it, thank you. I appreciate your support. So that about wraps up for this week's podcast. For if you want to see what's gonna be the following episode, please look me up on Blue Sky. I'll be mentioning what's going to be about. And if you have questions, again, email me at talkwithantonio@gmail.com. You can find me also on Instagram there. You can ask any questions there or message me, whatever. Or even you can even find me on TikTok, which is something I haven't really, I'm sorry if I keep going back, I haven't really activated it. But I have to get it I have to use it again before they shut it down, or I don't know what's going to happen to it. But yeah, find me there and I will say what's going to be for the following week's episode. So Thank you so much for listening for this week's episode. I want to say thank you all and have a good night. Bye-bye.